Okay, what we laid out here today is the part of the frame that we're going to set the keel on. And I had it setting up on the sawhorses, and I realized we don't want that because we want this to be flat so the keel will be straight. So we need to lay this all out on the ground of the cement surface here, my patio, which is relatively flat. Because I remember told you I was going to use this for the y-axis here to make sure that my keel was nice and straight. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to lay the one piece of plywood down here. Then we're going to screw the top piece on to the 2x4s that we're using. Once we get this all lined up here, and then we're going to put the other piece of plywood. Once we get that other piece of plywood on it, and we're going to screw that onto the other 2x4s. And then we'll have our mold. Then we'll drill holes for the clamps to fit into the little back brace against the 2x4s. And then we'll be able to clamp everything together. Everything will be amazing. And this is another boring part, so maybe we'll cue some cool music here. Or maybe not. Who knows? Oh, we'll get back on this here. And then this piece is going to get heavier and heavier, so gotta measure my screws here, see if they are too long. Nope, they will work. Yep, make the screwdriver go the correct way. And I don't know if you can tell or not, but pretty much everything I use has come from somewhere else. So all these screws that I'm using here, they actually came, I had one of those entertainment centers that was built into the wall, and I didn't like it. So I tore it out. And all these screws that I'm using right now came out of that. The plywood here came out of packing material. Oh, that's going to have to come out. But the plywood here came out of packing material we used. Was left over when we were putting connexes and pallets together to deploy over to Afghanistan. So that's why this plywood looks a bit aged, because it is. It was new 15. It was new let's see, that was 2010, so 15 years ago. It was new. And that's why it's well weathered. Okay, so that piece is there. Now this piece, I'm actually going to come back with the jigsaw, and I'm going to cut these pieces. Let's change the camera angle here so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to cut these pieces of the 2x4 along the edge here, so I'm going to bring this 2x4 right up to the edge of the curvature of the plywood, so I don't actually have to cut that. I can match that to the radius as we come around, and then all these three pieces of 2x4 will match the radius of our bow. And the bow is actually this mark here. It's actually a foot from the edge here, 12 inches. And that is the extent of the bow. And I'm actually going to come up and put that slightly past that when I start doing my lamination. So I have come down here probably an inch past that. So I have extra wood, because the plywood is going to be a bit crumbly, and you have damage, things like that, because I'm going to be taking this off and on as I start making the ribs. Whoop. We got this. Oh, we're not setting screws. We're drilling holes. Let's make our screwdriver do the right thing, and it will be much more effective until the battery dies. One of the things that happened earlier in me shooting video is the part on the frame where I assembled this. The phone got hot. I'm shooting this on my iPhone. This got hot and overheated. And here's the frame. I sandwiched this between two pieces of plywood, and then I went and drilled holes in it. And you can see, you probably saw the clamps in the other video that were mounted here, and this is how I did it. I went ahead and mounted the 2x4s on there. Then I went and drilled holes behind it, and then so I could use the clamps and clamp those in there. Keep hoping the
2x4 will go all the way through to that anchor point, but it doesn't quite reach there. That's okay though. It's not that important. Alrighty then, what we did here is we put those little screws in there and we squared it all up and we made sure it was plumb so that this piece here would be nice and plumb. And then we put those little screws in there because the asking engineer, the most structurally sound object is a triangle. So we have the two triangles here, and we actually have a large isosceles triangle between the three pieces of wood. So this thing, we have high winds here in Arizona, so that's another issue we have to take into account. Is the high winds. This thing, I've actually leaned the other two pieces for the midsection, which will be the beam, and then the stern, I've had those leaned up against the columns here, and the wind has knocked them over, so we get pretty good winds here. So this is set, it's in place. I need to measure, my beam is actually 6 feet, so half of that is 3 feet, so I need to make sure this is 3 feet from the outside, so that's like an version. Tape measure. So it is exactly 36 inches from the edge of the concrete. Unfortunately, it needs to be 36 inches from the edges of the columns. Because that, like right there, that column there is going to be where the beam, the widest part of the boat is. So I need at least 6 feet there. I think it's brace number 19. No, it can't be. Number 9, I think it is, the widest one. So, more than enough room.
Now it comes over here.
The reason I decided to get this vertical as opposed to building it on the ground is for this reason. This isn't square. So, what I'm going to have to do is take the belt sander to this and make it square. I'm going to have to go get a pen or a pencil. These don't actually have to be that precise, and the reason being is that the structure of the plywood will hold them in place as it arcs over this piece, so that'll hold it parallel.